Hey guys, don't know if you guys are in here. I'm going to try to see where I can find comments. If anyone shows up and has any questions, just lay it on me. I am Stephanie Joy with All Things Social Security, as some of you might know, who might be popping in. I am this is, I already hear the echo. I remember when I was with Jonathan, it was the same idea. Oh, I think I've got to, I think I fixed it. Okay, so I'm an attorney. I've been doing Social Security work for 20 years now. And more recently, I started the All Things Social Security YouTube channel, which is also on Rumble in varying degrees, I suppose. And hi, Tarika, how are you? Am I saying that right? That's a nice name. And just as an intro, this all started, and I'm just going to just talk a little bit while we're waiting for anybody to show up who might be showing up. Otherwise, we'll take whatever we got coming in. And I also have a couple things I could just mention that, things that would be otherwise in a video anyway. Okay, so I started doing videos privately, kind of like informative ones for my clients, because I was repeating myself over and over again, year after year to, dozens and dozens of clients on some basic things that, they could just see me say it once and I don't have to keep repeating myself. And I don't really tend to rely on other people to relay the message for me. So it's always me doing it. So we have a portal through a company. It's really good. It's really helpful for all the clients. So I would do a video and I would upload it to the portal. And that worked somewhat, but hi Tara, but if you guys have any questions, just feel free to pop them in there. When there were some clients that don't have storage you'd have to download the video to view it, since it wasn't up in some server like YouTube or Rumble or one of those. So for the clients that didn't have, say, a PC, or they were just using their phone, it wasn't really working out so well, because some of them, it was probably the minority, but it was still enough to be annoying. So that's when I put a few up. I think I started with Rumble, and then it was a little cumbersome, and I love Rumble, but it was cumbersome. So then I decided to go with YouTube, and they kind of synced together, the ones that were on Rumble with the ones that were on YouTube. And then other people would see it because they were just public videos. And that's how it ended up being, where I just started doing them more often when something would come up in the day, but it wasn't something necessarily the client would be interested in, but maybe somebody else. So that's how we got here. Do you guys have any questions? Anybody? Yes, no, maybe so. The only other things I thought I would talk about, if no one had questions, and this, like I said, this is just a total beta run here. First time doing this. Normally I'm a guest with Jonathan when that happens, but I'm a daytime person. So that's why I was like, well, let me just do it while I, having this coffee break, which is usually when I do my recorded ones anyway. Or I actually am trying to not finish the rest of that coffee, and I go with my big, ugly tumbler of water. But yeah, so I think if there's no questions or people aren't, coming in here, I think we have 10 people. I'm just going to go on some things that just cropped up that would have been in a video anyway. And again, if you guys have anything that you want to ask about, just pop it right in the chat. I think I'm seeing it. I see Tarika said hello. Tara said hello. So yeah, feel free. So the two things that I was popping in was, someone had recently asked, because due to a video that was about early retirement, the early retirement age for someone who was on Social Security disability and gets a CDR and gets ceased. So it happens. I don't think terribly often when you're 62, but I think it does happen sometimes. I think I popped up an example not that long ago in the last year of a person that happened to. And then some people chimed in that it happened to them. So we know it happens not always for a nefarious reason on the part of a claimant. In the case that I had published, the person had been legitimately disabled. Then they got better. It was like a cancer thing. And they started working full time, and they never told SSA. So obviously, but anyway, so the question was, if someone is ceased due to a CDR, can they just pop onto early retirement? Yeah, they can if they are 62 plus, absolutely, because there's no obviously disability retirement requirement there. And if they do, of course, I always have to remind people that if you take it at 62, you will be taking a permanent significant cut for the most part, up to 35% of what you would be expecting. So even what you were expecting or what you had been receiving for SSD is no longer going to be your retirement amount. You're going to, if you collect early, it would be if you waited and just went without anything until 67 or whatever your full retirement age is. But otherwise, yeah, you're going to be now taking the early retirement amount like everybody else, a 35, and I'm estimating their percent cut, and that lasts forever. Unless, of course, you go back to work and you're no longer collecting early retirement, or it gets negated because you're working too much and they let you know about that. That's a whole nother issue, right? I think I just did a video on that. Hi, Justin. How are you? I see you're saying you filed in March of 2024. I think I can I pop this up? Let's see. Okay. I'm just learning how to use this, guys. I've never done this before. So this is not coming from YouTube. It's coming from this little company called, what was it called? StreamYard. So I'm just trying it out. So Justin says, I filed in March of 2024. I turned 50 in June. Happy birthday. 50s aren't so bad for some of us anyway. I just got to a hearing. See, filed in March, turned 50 and 20. I just got to a hearing by appeal. What is the chance the judge will screw me back pay to change my onset date to 50th birthday? That is such a good question, Justin, because there's a very good chance. Now, first of all, I will say there's also a good chance you get denied. Remember, you were denied on the two below, and I don't know what you've done to improve your case from what it was to what it is now. It doesn't necessarily mean you had to. It could be the same status quo as long as you kept going to your treating providers during that interim time period. A judge can, of course, see differently than the SSA on the same kind of evidence. That can happen. It doesn't often happen, though. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't have a stat book. But I think if there's not something, well, you are going to argue the RFC, obviously, that they gave you, which was probably light or better. Do you know, Justin, what it was? Did they put you at light or sedentary when they denied you below? You might not even know that because they don't put it in that letter. If you get a handle of your file from the Office of Hearings Operations, it will be in there. It will be in the DDE, the Disability Determination Explanation. I don't think you guys have access to the stuff we have, which is a little unfair because if you're self-representing, shouldn't you have everything that a lawyer would have that can get in on your case? It seems like the common sense right thing. I'm not sure why they don't. I don't know if that'll be changing. If you guys know if it's changed, because I know they keep popping up newer stuff that's visible to us consumers as consumers. So I was just wondering about that. But going back to your question, Justin, what is the chance a judge will screw my back pay to change my onset date to 50th birthday? Very, very possible if you have a winning case. If you don't have a winning case when you're in your 40s because you have to prove you literally can do nothing, even a third grade simple sedentary easy job, that's what you got to prove when you're under 50. If you don't have that level of impairment, then chances are it is going to take at least an age 50. So it really depends on your case. Okay. But I think it is a good chance. And I don't even look at it as being a total screw, as you say, because it could be a total denial. And again, if you don't have that really severe evidence, that's often what the case is going to be. And I don't know how far away your hearing is. By the time you go to hearing, if it's not, I don't think you said it was already. You said, I just got to hearing by appeal. I think that means you're at the hearing level waiting for your hearing. It could be, if you haven't even gotten notice yet, they got to give you at least 75 days. So, you're always a couple months out if you haven't already gotten a hearing notice. So you will have a little bit of back benefits if that's the case, if he gives it back to your 50th birthday. And there are times when they can go, I don't know the full-fledged details off the top of my head, but a couple of months before 50, it's this little wiggly space they can do. But anywho, I just hope you prevail. If you yourself know that you can't work a full-time job, I do hope you prevail one way or the other. I know it would be nice to bring it back to wherever. You don't really say what your on-site date is, but you filed in March of 2024. They could never go back benefits prior to March of 2023 as a result. So, I don't know at what point after that unless you've been disabled for 3 years before that, and then you made the mistake of not filing quicker. All right. What do we have? Oops. Tarzan Walker. Hi, Tarzan. Been on step 3 determination for 7 months, 2 weeks. Any advice? I have lawyers, but don't hear from them. When you get a message about the steps, it really doesn't mean anything. Step 3, it depends which step pattern they're talking about. If it's a sequential evaluation process, that's 3 of 5. That means they're probably determining if you have an adjudicator right now. And by the way, you could be sitting there because you don't have one. You had one and he left, and they're waiting for a new one. And, I guess they have a certain limit on each adjudicator and how many cases they can have. So some people have to just wait without an adjudicator. It's very frustrating. It's been going on. I feel like I've seen it maybe for 2 years now. Very frustrating. I had never seen that before in my 20 years. So it's very frustrating to have no one back there assigned to your case. And that's at the second office, of course, the medical workup office. If, on the other hand, they're referring to step 3, the one that the field office talks about, which might be the one that you get the little notifications of up in your online access, then that might just be everything before it comes back to them after a decision has been made up at the medical workup office, a determination. So that really, again, doesn't really mean too much. Because, number 2 would be up there too. Okay. So I can't give you specifics, but I'm sorry you're not hearing from your lawyers. I don't know if they have a portal with messaging. I find it to be so helpful. We invested in, and it's really good. Okay. Sorry, I don't have a more firm answer for you there, Tarzan. Tara, okay. If I secure a life, let me pop this up here and see if I have any assistance. Oh, I'm sorry. Tara, I'll get back up to you. I just popped up. I don't even know how this works. Sorry, guys. Justin, I don't know. I'm working sedentary. Oh, I'm working sedentary. My attorney should argue grid. If you're working sedentary, you can't win at 50 because you're able to work sedentary. If you're typing that right. Remember, for gridding out at 50, you have to be unable to work sustained. Well, for all of them. And yeah, well, you can prove that you can only do sedentary, but you can't be working it unless you're under SGA. And then the judge is also going to say that you're able to do something, which isn't a bar. My attorney should already grid. I'm working. You might be meaning that your argument is, when you say working, maybe you mean your argument is working towards proving you can only do sedentary. Yeah, sedentary is hard. It seems like they have a real push to say someone can do light. So you really need to prove that you can't do that lifting over, 10 pounds or a bit less. Issues are physical, mental, and intelligence. Okay, so the mental would get you down to unskilled, but of course those still exist. So it will also potentially help you not be able to transfer skills, which is another thing you need to prove when you're doing a grid. Remember, it's a grid, just for everybody to refresh. Whichever grid you're in due to your age, can't do your prior job. And you have to prove that medically, of course. You can't just say it. You can't transfer skills that you learned at that prior job. And that prior job is the one that's in the last 5 years, thankfully now. You can't transfer those to another job that would be less arduous that you could do. So like, let's say you were doing light and now you can't do light and you're 50. You can prove that you can only do sedentary, but if you could transfer those skills to that job. If that's a transferable skill, and that's a really intricate analysis, then you lose. So you have to prove that you can't transfer them. Sometimes, in my opinion, mental health issues can, if you had, depending on the skills, sometimes interfere with the ability to transfer your skills to a different occupation, because we're just not focusing enough. We don't have the concentration, anxiety, whatever is getting in our way. So yeah, I mean, 50, you have a better shot than 49, Justin. Tara, I want to pop up back to you. If I secure a life insurance policy, will SSDI consider that income or assets that would affect my benefits? No, no, no. And assets are wonderful. And SSD is not a poverty test. So it's just that I can't work substantially test, right? So Tara, yeah, you can secure a life insurance policy for sure. SSI could be a different story. Potentially, if it's got like, I'm going to speak broadly here, so don't hold me to any exactitude. But with SSI, if someone has a life insurance policy that has a cash out value, that could be a problem, right? So, but you're SSDI, and it's a whole different ballgame. So go for it, Tara. Life insurance, particularly if you have kids or something, right? Who doesn't want that? Okay. All right. Sorry. Scrolling down, guys. I'm on my own today. Okay. Justin doesn't have a hearing date yet. Work on that evidence. See what you really need. My guess is, Justin, you really need the physical proof that you're limited to sedentary. It's got to be pretty intense musculoskeletal or something else. Okay. Robert Smith. Oh, Robert. Okay. We could do this. Can you talk about what's involved? And hi, Robert. Thanks for joining. Can you talk about what's involved with the first appeal process? The case goes to an arbiter. Is that a medical person or a group of people? Okay. So generally, your first appeal out of initial, when you get denied on initial, is to go to reconsideration. And by and large, we just have them review it. Not an informal conference where you show up or anything like that. And that's what you want to make sure that on that reconsideration, which is going to be the same process that you just went through for the most part. And in fact, they didn't used to do this, but they used to not ask for a function report again, but now they seem to. I think it's because of that really big delay at initial and recon due to, whether it's short staffing, budget problems, whatever, very insufficient adjudicators. So, if you don't get an adjudicator for 8 months, they're going to want another function report, most likely, to see how you say you've changed, because a lot of times your symptoms are going to get worse, right? Particularly, when you're going through this process. Some people do improve, obviously, if they've had some sort of treatment that helps it, or it's something that just needed to recover from. But yeah, it's going to be the same basic thing you just went through now with a person, just like your prior adjudicator that denied you. Now you have a new one in the very same office. This might be why it has a reputation, not always deserved, but perhaps sometimes, of being a rubber stamp. The scuttlebutt theory is that, the adjudicator number 2 is not going to just flip adjudicator number 1, because that's really just kind of like backstabbing each other, perhaps, and insulting their adjudication skills. However, that's not true if you present different evidence on recon. You should be getting all the new. Now, granted, they're supposed to be helping you order it, but if you don't tell them, they don't know. I'd be telling them every time I went to a doctor. I'd be really anal about it. I have my clients message us with, within a day, I preferably, but sometimes it's a week later, but tell us every visit you go to. Pop in on this message thread in the portal and tell me who you went to, when, and what for, and which office preferably, because if we have to order those records, we need to know which address, right? We also want a fax number, because it's great to fax them as well. Then we have proof they got it. But yeah, you're going to be going through the same thing, Robert, for the most part. It's not an arbiter. It is another adjudicator who's going to relook at the information you submitted, the basis for it, by the other adjudicator and see if there's anything new that could maybe change that. So I think your best bet is to get stuff that might change it. Things like that could be updated diagnostics. If you have not had let's say it's a musculoskeletal and you haven't had an MRI in over a year, that might be the thing you're going to try to pursue. And just a reminder, guys, sometimes these MRIs in today's medical insurance world and or medical office world, sometimes we have to wait 6 months. So when you see that you're breathing down a bit of a gap there, if you can get it scheduled, because it might take 4 or 5 months to get that MRI, right? So you got to almost kind of be thinking ahead all the time. That's what we're always kind of doing with our client cases. Trying to give them things that they can do now so that when it's looked at in 4 months, that evidence is now there. Instead of saying to an adjudicator, well, in 5 months I have an MRI, they're gonna be like, too late, so sad. We got to make a decision now. Boom, denied. Now you get to appeal to a hearing. And if you can win before a hearing, that's the biggest goal, right? All right, where are we at? I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody up here. Okay. It's basically first come, first serve, guys, on the questions. That seems fair, right? All right. Marie. This is a great question, Marie. How long does it take at the payment center to fix the reduced price of workers' comp since March? Let me tell you something. I don't know whether you have started to get paid, but then they realize you have a workers' comp issue that they have to offset and they have to go back and do an overpayment. Or if you're saying they haven't even paid, you won, you have an award, or you're going to have an award, but you also know they have to offset workers' comp because your onset date that SSA decided you had, plus the 5-month waiting period, assuming this is SSD. If any of those months that you would be back paid for SSD, you also got workers' comp for, and if that month's math breaches the 80% rule, and I don't do workers' comp, guys, I just know a little bit is a dangerous thing, then you're going to have, that's what they're going to be offsetting. For those that you are not aware, not every workers' comp person who has an SSD is going to get offset because they might not ever breach the 80% rule. The biggest, I don't want to say victims of that, but the most people affected by that are not the higher income earners, because they're unlikely to, the higher income earners are less likely to hit 80% of their normal, most recent income levels when they start getting from working, when they start getting their workers' comp and their SSD, put them together. Does it hit 80% of what you used to make? Higher income earners, it generally doesn't, because SSD is not that high. A lot of times workers' comp is higher than the SSD for the month. Okay. Yeah. So how long does it take? When they get it done. I know. It sounds like if you've been waiting since March of 2024, you won back then, Marie? Like you got notice that you prevailed and it's still sitting there for 10 months waiting for someone to do the math? I would get in touch with somebody. I would start squeaking big time. And if worse comes to worse, I'd probably go to my congressperson. And usually on their websites, they have something called, and sometimes it's hard to find. It used to be really easy. And now I see it kind of embedded in weird places. Help with a federal agency, and then scroll down, and they might have one for SSA, or it's just a general one. And then a drop down. Once you're putting your information in, they're going to generally want a release from you that you can often do online, but sometimes printing and faxing it to them. Really, really handy. I find them to be usually very expeditious. And I say this in a bipartisan way. I use them on either side. I usually do tend, on the rare occasion I have to do this, I pick the one that's coming up for election sooner than later, thinking they might be a little even more responsive, right? Everyone's looking for the vote. So yeah, if that's been 10 months and you win, if I'm understanding this right, Marie, if you prevailed and you're still waiting on back pay, that is to fix the reduced price. Did your workers' comp stop in March? And you told them and they're supposed to readjust your SSD so it's not offset? I just have someone like that. I don't even have access to our case anymore because it's long since out, but they were very slow about doing that. And incidentally, there was an 7-month period where workers' comp screwed up like 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever she was now retroactively eligible for SSD, which was quite a long time, but workers' comp ate up the whole thing. So somehow there was a glitch for 7 months. Workers' comp didn't pay her. So we're trying to get Social Security to adjust those. Those are the months she should get the full SSD for in retro. And then it resumed again. And then it finally stopped in, September 2024. They are really, really slow as molasses. And the field office in this case is really ignorant and incompetent, at least with regard to this. And they're really treating her poorly. I'm not connected to the case anymore, but I'm still trying to shoot a letter here and there. And then the next step, of course, is the congressperson. This is Jersey, so I don't have a lot of confidence in that, but we'll see. Okay. Let's say, Robert, is there a percentage of cases that get overturned on the first appeal? I appreciate your YouTube channel. Thank you. It's very informative. I appreciate that very much. Thanks for being here. There is, and there's like a waterfall chart. I don't have one from the last year or two, but I know I have one someplace. I think overturn on the first appeal. If I try to remember back, so I hate to say don't hold me to it, but everything is general, right? If 35 or so % in the national sphere win on initial, and if they all appealed, which many do not, so these numbers aren't going to be clear regardless. If 15% of those that appeal initial do get overturned and win on reconsideration, where does that leave us with answering this question? Can I do it? I'm trying to think of the equation in my head. How many get overturned on the first appeal? Oh, I think I just answered it. The last waterfall chart I think I saw was about 15%. Now that's overall. Imagine if you were a person who actually worked on your appeal, or your lawyer did, or your non-attorney rep. So I will say for a fact that I have more. I don't have a 15% overturn on recon. It is something greater than that, and I try not to keep track of it. But it's not uncommon at all. But we work on recon, and we actually, we work with our clients on their function report and their work history report to make sure it's accurate and responsive, and not inaccurately damaging in an inaccurate way. So there's a lot of things you can do on initial and recon to not have to go the full 9 yards to ALJ hearing, including always reporting your new visits. Or if you get a new doctor, it's up to you to make sure that the SSA or the DDS with the adjudicator gets that information, right? So they can order those records, and be the squeaky wheel potentially with your adjudicator. Now, there is some camps that suggest that if you're so able to be communicative with your adjudicator and really organized, it might be inconsistent with things you may have mentioned you couldn't do or were very troubled with. I think that is, if you don't have a lawyer to do all the phone calls for you, or all the letters, all the write-ups, everything, to facilitate all that stuff and handle the conversations so that you don't have to worry about making a mistake or saying something that out of turn that really wasn't responsive, but you didn't understand the question or the purpose behind the question, then you have to, I think, because you do need them to get that information. Now you have their fax number, and they should have sent you a barcode. You can send it all in writing, even if you Well, if you have a hand problem, I wouldn't suggest you handwrite it. But there are other ways to get them the information, the contact information for the new providers, or tell them about the new visits without speaking to them on the phone, if that's a problem. So there's different ways to skin that cat, but just be thorough if you're on your own with it. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna try this one. I'm not reading them all the way through before I pop them up. So everybody be nice. Nobody put anything bad up there. I don't have a moderator. Right? This is Lesby Rockin'. How you doing? I was approved for SSDI dating back to 12/30 of 2022. So we're talking over 2 years ago. Congratulations on that win, but I have not received anything, Ray, recertification, nor anything, Ray, Medicare. I have health insurance through spouse and Medicaid. Okay, SSDI. Recertification, that's kind of a word we usually think about with SSI and the finances and stuff. So I think you're thinking about a CDR, because your finances don't matter to Social Security when you're on SSD, because you don't have to prove that you are under a certain financial threshold. You just got to be disabled and not working in an undisabled way. So I think what you probably want to know is, what is my diary date for my CDR? And you could probably call the field office and they can look that up for you. Your local, if you want. It's a good thing to know. As you know, guys, CDRs, you kind of always want to have that view in your back of your mind without letting it be as troublesome or as irritating or as nerve-wracking as proving your case. I mean, you did the big work of proving it, but you can't then just go on, medical vacation and never deal with doctors again. I always say you kind of have to have a reasonable level of continuation of your treatment or follow-ups. Okay. Yeah, Medicare, you would have been eligible. Well, actually, it depends on when your onset date was, Mr. or Ms. Rockin'. Because it's 29 months. It's 24 months of back payments. So have you received 24 months worth of benefits so far, including your back benefits? Like if your onset date, oh, you said dating back to, yeah, I was thinking something else. 12, yeah, you're not really eligible for Medicare yet, because your first 5 months were the waiting period. That would put you in somewhere around May, June. And then you got to attach your 24 months to that, which would put you in 2025. So soon you would be eligible for Medicare, although it doesn't look like you're going to want it because you have health insurance through your spouse, assuming that's her active work employer provided benefit. And you have Medicaid. Both, huh? Sweet. All right. I hope that kind of gives an answer to that. It's weird. Once I toggle over someone's thing, it disappears. Angie says, 48 years old with major depression, PTSD, and carpal tunnel, and MRI that validates back pain with degenerative issues. I'm sorry to hear you have all that, Angie. It's got to be tough. Previously on disability, but tried working and lost benefits, now unable to hold any job. Oh, man. Okay. Let me pop that up there. So you didn't mention if you have refiled or how long ago you were on DIB, but you can either refile entirely, or if it's within the last 5 years, you might be able to certainly ask for an expedited reinstatement. Ironically, I don't find them to be very, very quick, but they do usually pan out on initial, I believe. I don't see many of them at all. I've had a client or two, but not recently, that we prevailed. They were on disability, then they tried to go back to work, and they did cease. They did it long enough, like a year, to cease right out of disability benefits, which is fine. That was their idea of doing. They really wanted to get back into it, and it was a back musculoskeletal issue. I'm sure with surgery, and then that was the attempt to go back after maybe recovery helped a little bit. And then ultimately, it started to deteriorate again. And that was an expedited reinstatement, I believe. Anyway, yeah, I would do that. Expedited reinstatement. Make it clear that's what you're doing when you file. But you can just file again. And the years that you were in DIB and of course any years you earn credit after, they don't detract from your DLI. So it kind of saves you. You don't have to worry about, well, I haven't worked. Like, let's say someone hadn't worked again and didn't earn more credits. Their date last insured, it kind of tolls it while you're on disability. So if you still had time left, you may still. So there is that. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Angie, you did file. You've been waiting on recon level for about a year. I don't know if that was a expedited reinstatement. I wouldn't worry about it probably at this point. You can acquire, though, since they didn't award you at initial, so it might depend on how much you've been treating to show, like you did last time, how bad off you are. So, and depending on your age, sometimes an expedited is maybe easier because the person also aged into a new category. They went from under 50 to over 50, or early 50s to over 50, 55 or over. And that, of course, makes for a simpler determination of disability, if the shoe fits, of course. Okay. I'm seeing people give helpful information to people with questions. That's great. Yeah, squeaky wheel. Okay, let's take a look at Mr. Donnie. Oh, Donnie, you're feeling very doomsdayish. Sorry about that. Psych CE examiner said he wishes to change my denial at the beginning of the meeting. Second time filing. How long after consult will? I assume you're asking, oh, there you go. Will I get a decision? Usually it's pretty quick. It used to be we'd get an initial or recon. When there was a consultative exam, we usually got, that was like the last thing they did after, because they already got all your records supposedly, and then they would do the CE exam. And so usually once the adjudicator that's the last bit of medical evidence, and then everything goes to the medical expert in the SSA, who then looks at it and says, his RFC is this, or he meets a listing. Well, the listing question would come first. If not, here's the RFC. And it would take a few weeks perhaps, but there's no rhyme or reason right now for whatever things take. So it could be fast if everybody's present at work and, do it. And I don't mean physically present. I mean, whether they work remote or not, if they're on the job, it could be fast. If someone's on vacation or someone just quit or they don't really get fired, but then it could be something different. So hopefully very soon. Yeah, good luck. And hopefully he knows what answers. If the SSA people decide to find that CE examiner is credible and reliable and not an underestimate of your capacities, that's the way they like to say, we think that was an underestimate. We think you can do more. Therefore, we're not going to give a lot of weight to CE examiner. If that is the case, usually by then they have it all together. And if the CE examiners are supposed to know what the answers mean that they give and which ones are, given your vocational profile, which ones would mean, if believed to be true, disabled. So that maybe that's what he was kind of referring to, like, Angie, I just want to mention something. You told it's not 24 months for Medicare after your onset date. there is a 5-month waiting period you have to deal with. It's 24 months of back benefits or current benefits. So like if your back benefit check is 12,000, 12 months worth, pardon me. It's 12 months worth. And that's your back benefits. And now you're going to prospective benefits. You got another 12 months. So it's 24 months of benefits have to have been paid before Medicare becomes an eligibility, in the line of sight. So it's not necessarily after the onset. Onset could have been 4 years ago. So it's really going to depend. All right. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Oops. I don't, unless it's making me, oh, I do see some more. It's very weird. It seems stalled. Okay. Let's see. Jay Dilly. Hi, Jay Dilly. How are you? I grew up with a Dilly family. Fun people. All right. Thank you for addressing those of us that applied for SS and disability. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm 64 and was denied disability. Appealing. What concerns me is my SS account isn't showing my appeal. Ooh, return receipt confirmed. Jay Dilly, was that an online appeal where you got the receipt, how they pop out that page that says thank you for appealing or whatever? And I always say print out everything, or if you're a digital saver, do it that way. That's fine. Yeah. How long ago did you appeal it? It's not showing up in your online stuff, I think, your SS account. I would call the field office. If it's been, if you did it online, I usually see it within a couple days. Like it'll say, oh, you can't get into the same thing we can get into. Gosh, and you guys see something totally different. So I can't really speak to that. And that thing always changes what you guys see. And the messaging changes, and it's a little nonsensical. But I would call the field office. Since you don't even know what adjudicator would be on it if it was appealed, you can't really call them. I'd call the field office and I'd make sure that they have the appeal. It does happen sometimes where something gets, I don't know if it's lost in space or, the internet digital sphere, but you can ask them. If they don't, ask them what you should do if they don't show you as having appealed at all. And if so, is it after your 60 days? If it isn't after your 60 days, do it again. If it is after your 60 days, that's the deadline for appealing, right, guys? You're going to resubmit your appeal and ask for, it's basically you're asking for them to accept the appeal you're sending now out of time, since it's past the 60 days, for just cause. And make it clear that the just cause is I filed it, you received it, and your system didn't process it. And show them the proof, show them that return receipt. And I've never done that without them accepting the appeal now out of time. And of course, out of time was not you, right? You were on time. It's actually them almost, we're going to accept your appeal even though we are out of time in a situation like that. But they're never going to say it quite like that. But that's kind of what it is. So yeah, I would call the field office, find out what's going on. I wouldn't let that sit. Because even if you can get it fixed 6 months from now by doing what I just said, do you really want your case to lag for 6 months? So, okay, let's see. And thank you for that question. How about this one? Let's be rocking again. Is applying for Medicare mandatory? It is not. At least not from a Medicare or SSA standpoint. But if you don't, and I'm going to say this generally, so you can do your own research. If you don't apply for Medicare when it is first available to you, and you do not have creditable coverage otherwise, And by the way, buying a private policy doesn't count as creditable. Go figure. Then when you do eventually collect Medicare, file for Medicare, you could be subject to the Medicare premium penalty, and that's 10% a year. So let's say it's $185 a month for Medicare. If you missed 1 year because you didn't feel like buying Medicare at the time, but you didn't have creditable coverage, then my math says that you will be paying not 185, but 185 plus 1850. If you were 10 years you did this, that's an awful lot. That's like, what would that be? Over 100%, a doubling. So make sure it's creditable coverage. Generally, and you're going to want to go to the Medicare site and they'll tell you about it. Generally, if a spouse is working and has employer provided coverage and you are the spouse on that policy, that generally is creditable coverage. Now, just as an aside, I have seen, and I don't follow this is not my pay lane, but I've seen employers who are providing insurance to the spouse, not just the worker. It's required in their policy that if the spouse can get Medicare, he must take that as primary, and then the employer provided benefits to the spouse becomes secondary. It can still be a great thing because now you probably even have copays and deductibles covered if there's a secondary. I don't know, not my forte, but something to look into if you happen to have that spouse that works and has benefits. So, but otherwise, yeah, there could be. It's not mandatory. You're allowed to not do it, but expect that you could have a penalty on your premiums when you eventually do need it. Okay. Okay, this is Marie. Hi again, Marie. Why do they give you a date for next CDR, which mine is 5 to 7 years, was approved first round, but not what I was approved for? But those who get appeals get no CDR date, but what they were approved for. I don't even know what that means, Marie. I'm sorry. 5 as a general thing, a diary date of 5 to 7 years usually means they don't expect it to improve. So keep up with your follow-up in a reasonable manner with the specialist that you were treating with before. And, unless there's a great medical invention out there that really causes great improvement, which they are not expecting, but is possible. That's why there is a CDR at all. You're probably, from a CDR standpoint, in a good place. I'm sorry that it's, improvement not expected, though, because I'd like to see everybody improve and be well. I really don't know what the rest of this question means. Why do they give you a date for the next year? I don't know, but not what I was approved for. The CDR is about whether you're disabled or not. It's not about what you are approved for, per se. I mean, they're going to have a comparison point. On the CDR, they compare now to whatever their comparison point is. How are you at this particular time? And they compare them. So that's why you want to have your medical evidence not going bye-bye, in the interim. Yeah, but those who go to appeal get no CDR date because if they have to appeal, they haven't won. So there is no CDR, unless I'm misunderstanding your question. So I apologize if I am, but maybe if you can be a little more, separately clear, maybe. Here we go. Hi, Janine. Thank you for visiting. I appreciate. And you're talking about Cindy, age 61, was denied with multiple medical problems. So maybe you're Cindy. Are you Cindy? Hi, Cindy. I'm appealing. I have off balance, ringing in ears, heart problems, migraines, arthritis, had sedentary job as secretary. Okay. I'm guessing they said you could do your old work. It might have been the way you presented your work history reports. If you have an attorney, hopefully they know how to make that more accurate for you. If you don't have one, I honestly think you should just, fill out our eval. I'll take a look at it. Yeah, I'm sorry you were denied, but you can potentially overturn this on recon if you, if you haven't had advice on how to make it stronger. That's something you're going to want. The legal advice. It's not medical advice. It's legal advice on how to make your medical evidence stronger, and any other evidence that we can creatively strategize about. But yeah, because it was sedentary, they very rarely find someone can't do sedentary work. They don't like to do it, but there's so many other ways to win, notwithstanding that. So, and that would be the grids for sure. So definitely give me a buzz, or if you go to the website, joydisability.com, I think right up in the upper left corner is the link for it'll get me an eval form. It's just very brief questions along with your contact information. I'll call you. And in the comments, when you fill it out, just say, I conversed with you on the live YouTube day, Wednesday. Okay. And I will definitely remember. All right. Okay. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Rockin'. That's very sweet. You've been very extremely helpful with my case for a long time. Thank you. I thank you also for being here. What do we got? Angie. Okay. Hi, Christina. How's California doing? Mr. Johnny, you're very welcome. All right. I see Gemini here. Let's see. Gemini to Butterfly. Hi, Gemini. 59 years old. Just had a stroke in June. Sorry to hear that. That's tough. Working with. Is this word, when you say this big long word, oh no, that's a company. DE Diamondation. Is that a company? Service sent in work history, adult function on stage 3 of 5. Haven't did the CE. What's next? Well, they usually give a CE exam if the medical records thus far don't establish you are disabled to their satisfaction, but they think, this is the way it was always explained to us, but they think it could be. It could be. Let our guy look at it and see. Okay. I don't very often see them not give a CE exam and give a denial. In fact, often they give a CE exam and, well, very rarely would there be a denial without a CE exam. I don't know if that's a CYA thing, or, hey, the CE confirmed what we thought, that you're not quite there yet with the proofs. But I would expect a CE unless they award you without it, because your medical records are very strong. And now that so you had the stroke in June, I don't know what your sequelae is on that, what the ramifications have been, what's come back, what hasn't, and where, it impedes you. I don't know the service that you are using. I don't know who that is, so I can't speak to their quality, but you probably know better since you've been working with them. I will say, and I'll say this to anybody, if you have a law firm or a non-law firm company that has your case, and I know sometimes everyone, people are not always satisfied with the level of communication. They could say, I left a message 3 months ago and I don't even know if anyone's alive up there. Nobody responds, whatever. I don't know. That's communication is one of the biggest bar complaints or always was back when I used to, work in regular practice, before I moved to this little niche area. But it does I know it puts a lot of strain on a claimant, which is why I think it's especially important for advocate groups or law firms to not treat, not they should do this to other clients, but definitely not to people, fighting for SSD and SSI. But what I always like to tell people when they want to switch, remember, or they're just not happy and they want to, talk about it. Whoever it is has every incentive. I can't talk about their competency. I don't know, but they have every incentive to win because they're not going to get paid 1 red cent unless they do. And that's a reminder to everyone out there. If somebody sends you a bill for working on your SSD, SSI case, that's illegal. So I would report that to, and it's a bill for legal work, not a bill for, hey, we just paid your doctor for your records. That's your responsibility. I'm talking about legal hour work. Anything they did, the work they did on your case, not the money they advanced you if they did for medical records or something else. Yeah, they can't bill you, and they're not going to get paid if they don't prevail. They're not going to get that approval by the SSA in writing that they can bill you, which normally just gets paid through the SSA for those that are registered with them, those of us that do this often. So you never even actually see a bill. The SSA, it's going to be right in your award letter. We approved the fee agreement with your attorney, and this is how much, they can charge you. And then they actually go ahead and pay it to the attorney or the non-attorney rep. Whoever's, if the person is fully registered with the SSA, like, most practitioners who do a lot of this are. So they do have every incentive to win for you because they can't win. They can't get a fee. The SSA is not going to award a fee if you don't prevail. So imagine if they do the work they're doing and obviously they want to win. So not just for the altruistic reason of helping you, but because that's the business that they're in. So, if I hope things work out as a win on initial. You are on this second half of the 12-month period. On initial, they could say, we think you'll be better enough to do some sort of work within 12 months. You remember that 12-month durational period. But yeah, I think you're getting close to it now, because if it's June, we're now talking like we're pushing 7 months, right? January. Now you're breathing down the runway towards 12 months. So hopefully it will be your win on initial. Okay. With your, I can't even say the word, diamorphization service. Anyway, they have every incentive to get the job done and get it done. Well, don't even get me started on, maybe some outfits might not want to get it done because your first 5 months are unpaid waiting period, and now therefore you only get a couple months of back benefits and they get a $200 fee. That's another thing. All right. But we hope that's not the case. Let's see. I'm not a Medicare expert, but I'm going to pop this up anyway. They were going to take, this is Diane. Hi, Diane. They were going to take $222 out of my husband's Social Security check for Medicare B. Everything has read, says it's optional. Can you speak about this? I did just speak about this, Diane. I don't know if you were here. It was a few minutes ago. You said there will be cost to him if he doesn't accept it. I just explained this above, so you might want to go back and take a listen. I'm not going to repeat it here, obviously. Or you might have actually posted this and then I answered it, because I am I think I'm about 15, 17 minutes lag on these questions. So yeah, hopefully that helped you. Let me know if it didn't. 222. I think wasn't it like 185 this year? I try not to follow Medicare, honestly. But my mother, who lives with me, She gets it. I thought it was going to be 185, not 222. Although if you have cost of Medicare will go up above what most people get, guys. If with IRMA, income related Medicare adjustment or something like that, IRMA with 2 A's, I think. The 185 is for those of us with more moderate income in retirement, and then they will charge more to those at much higher income levels. So there is that. Most people, though, it's the 185. Let's look at, I'm going to scroll on down. I will answer. Mr. Donnie has another question, but I think it could be helpful for everybody too. He had applied on skeletal issues, spinal stenosis, pushing on a nerve. I stated my mental health issues on the application as well. Why did they only send me to the psychological CE? Does that mean they have enough evidence of my physical issues? Yes, probably it does. Does it mean they found you disabled, though, based on your physical? And I'm not sure if they did find you disabled on your medical. I hope they don't award without completing the mental, only because, I don't know, I don't know. It feels like they should all be in there. Maybe for CDR purposes or reinstatement purposes, if that ever comes up later. Just thinking always down the road. But yeah, if they didn't send you to physical, it generally means, my understanding, that they have enough to create a physical RFC for you. So that's good. But again, it doesn't mean that you are disabled by your physical. They didn't, and it could be, well, the physical gets his RFC. It doesn't disable him entirely, but it gets his RFC. And I don't know what age you're at. If you are under 50, and this only applies to older people, if the medical evidence they have of the physical brings someone down to what would be a grid out, should they be able to prove they can't do their old job, or they can't transfer skills, and the transferring skills and or the old job could all be a result of psychological problems if we're having mental health struggles. So it would be, in order to win, you would have to get that psychological CE. It might also suggest, Mr. Donnie, that you're not getting treatment for your mental health. You claimed it, but you're not bothering to treat. I say to everybody, if you have any limitations in concentration or focus, it could be due to your pain, it could be due to anxiety, it could be due to depression or anything else, or worse things. If you're having a case, I suggest you treat it as such. I know that can be a pain. Sometimes people are like, I can manage it, or, my PCP gives me a, mild, whatever. That is a start. That might not be enough. He is not a mental health professional. And if you need a little more, and they often don't write down your symptoms and your mental status exam that a therapist might. So you might want to consider starting mental health therapy. And again, for medical evidence reasons, guys, I'm not giving medical advice. Okay. But it helps them, the therapist is going to talk about whether you're anxious when you're there, what the signs are, what your mood is, all that kind of stuff. So. Oh yeah, Jay Dilly, I see you're talking about how difficult it is to get through, probably on the phone to the field office. I hear you. It is. Sometimes at some field offices I call, and you sit on hold, and I put them on speaker, and I go about my business, my whatever work I'm working on, and then you get disconnected after like 25 minutes. Like, it's frustrating. All right. Marie's talking about many people don't get a CDR date when they get into appeals and win. Okay. The CDR dates being shared out, that's like an inconsistent but newer animal, Marie. Sometimes an ALJ will have it and he'll give an opinion on it. It's usually just an opinion and the field office decides, I think. Sometimes I think the field office might stick it in an award letter. but I don't see it all the time. So I think it's inconsistent. And it was just a few years ago when the prior administration, the one that is going to be in administration again, I think they made that something that they wanted to see more transparent for claimants, that CDRs need to be evidence so someone knows when to expect it. Because there are things you can do to prepare that maybe you wouldn't otherwise do. Like diagnostics, they don't cure you, so you're not necessarily going to, want to pay the copay or the deductible, but maybe you will if you know that, I'll have a CDR and I should have this within a year of that or something. So I think that's a little more transparent, but if not, I would call the field office and find out. And I'm not sure if you can't get through to your field office. Can't say for sure, but if anyone has tried it, let me know. What if you call the 800 national number? Can they dig in and see what your diary date is? I don't know the answer if they can. But if you need that number, it's 1-800-772-1213. And sometimes they have information like that. I know you can call them to get your date less insured. So it seems to me they should also be able to find out your diary date. But, right hand doesn't always know what the left hand's doing in the world of the SSA. So, okay. Oh, G Ray. Hi, G. I'm 62 and my CDR says 5 to 7 years. That means medical improvement not expected, G. I will be 63 in 5 years. Is it definite I will receive a CDR or a chance? Thank you so much. I don't think it's definite, particularly given the age you're going to be, and the fact that they also say 5 to 7. The 7 is the age 60. You'll be 65. They could, what it sometimes means is they send you that short little form that just goes over a few questions, and they confirm that you're still seeing your doctors and the doctor hasn't said you can go back to work, or you haven't discussed it with them. And it could just be one of those things where and maybe not even this, they could also be behind. And so it never happens. And the next thing you know, you are full retirement age and there is no CDRs once you're off of SSD and onto, or SSI, which, you'd be old age SSI at 65 even, but SSDI at your full retirement age of 66 or 67. So I think there's a good chance that it would be that little shorty if they're even on time. And then as long as there's nothing glaring on there, they're probably going to, move it along and not do a full-blown CDR. Again, keep up with basic follow-up, of course. Let's see, Vic. Oh, I don't know the answer, Vic. You're asking, does SSA monitor how many times you log into the SSA site? You mean your online access? I think maybe you're referring to. I don't know the answer. I would think so. I would think there would be a record of that. I don't think it, hurts you, right? Oh, Maria, you're so sweet. Thank you. I'm really not all that, but the kind words are very nice, and God bless you too. Thank you, Trish. Appreciate. And hello, Tennessee. All right. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to know the answer to this, Tara, but let's see. I just started receiving SSDI in June of 2024. I heard about a circuit breaker tax. Is that a typo, Tara? Circuit breaker tax for Social Security recipients. Does this apply to SSDI recipients as well? I tried to look it up, a bit confusing. I don't really know what you're talking about, but if you're talking about a tax break for Social Security recipients, that has been proposed by the president-elect, who believes Social Security recipients should not be taxed on their Social Security benefits at all. That affects, from my reads, about 40% of Social Security recipients are taxed on that. And as you might know, if you are taxed on it, if you're in that 40%, it starts at 50% of the benefits could be taxed and the other 50% not, at whatever your tax rate is. And it can go up to 85% can be taxed. There's always going to be at least 15% not taxed for even those that are taxed. It doesn't take a lot of combined income to bump yourself into the income tax, federally income taxed bracket. So, and the irony is it's 40% now, or last year, whatever, whatever the date of what was the article I was reading, but the combined income levels under which you're not taxed has not had the COLA applied to it. We talk about they don't raise the COLA for SSI resources. It's still 2000. It's been there for 40 years. I mean, crazy that they don't. I mean, it's grossly unfair to not have a COLA applied, and they have not had. Okay, so I don't know when the first time I ever looked at the, did the read-ups on the combined income that's put out by the IRS and the SSA. So for a single individual, if their combined income is over $25,000, and that could be income from retirement, from Social Security, although I think only half of it's counted from Social Security. A whole nother thing. We got to see the equation. Combined income. I know I have a video on it. Combined income. And it's probably in the taxation playlist. But that hasn't changed. If that hasn't changed, let's just say, and I'm pulling this number out because I have not looked up one, but if the other things haven't changed in 30 years, I think it's fair to say the combined, the flat amount they give for the combined income threshold at 25, if it was 25,000 30 years ago, and it's still 25,000, think about how many. I mean, it's crazy. So 25 years ago, maybe nobody was, or very few people, only the wealthy maybe, were taxed, federally income taxed on their Social Security benefits. But since that level has never moved with COLA and with inflation, all those extra people. But in any event, I did think I had read it was about 45% of people are taxed on their Social Security. So nearly half, and the other half not. And so that elimination of federal taxation on Social Security would eliminate that for everybody. I am in favor of eliminating it. I think you paid the taxes when you worked to get the Social Security. Not to mention, you're going to be using it to spend on things that get taxed, food. You know what I mean? You'll be spending it on taxes. Taxes will be going out. And not to mention, every state has their own rule on that. The states might have state income tax on that. And if you have to pay local taxes, like I have to pay here, that might be considered part of the taxable income. So, the federal government can only decide, and it would be Congress, I guess, whether it'll be federally taxed. They can't affect your state. So you have to vote in your state to get rid of that tax, right? If it's there. Okay. Anyway, I hope, Tara, you were asking about taxation, maybe. I don't know. I just don't know what circuit breaker. I think that might be a typo. Let's see if I can answer this. If full retirement age is 67, when will my SSDI switch to SS retirement? 67, freelance. Yep, boom. And you don't have to do anything to make it happen. It's going to happen seamlessly, and you should be getting about the same amount. So it just kind of happens au natural. And of course, if you find you can work, feel free, right? If you want to bring in extra income part-time because you're not, you're disabled from working full-time, which is why you're on SSD, You weren't necessarily disabled from working part-time. So have at it. Yes, fair value gap. That's what he just typed, and that is the right answer. Oh, Margaret. Okay, let's clear this up. Nice to see you, Margaret. Thank you. Should one go ahead and set a perk appointment if they can once SSDI is approved? There is no perk for SSDI. Perk is only for SSI. And the perk interview is the non-medical questions the SSA needs to know to see if you're eligible for SSI, because you have to be poor enough. So they're going to find out your living arrangements. Are you getting free shelter? Are you getting free gifted money? Are you working and earning? All that kind of stuff. And your resource limit. Do you have, more than $2,000 in the bank as a single person? Or do you have more than one car? Does that bump you over $2,000, the second car? Do you have real estate that you don't live in? Which would be then be considered like investment income. So those are all those questions. Perk for SSI only, not SSDI. And if you did mean to say SSI, Margaret, and not SSDI, the SSA will generally reach out to schedule that because they need to do it with their schedule specifically. So, all right. Marie says, I don't actually have a problem with the local field office, just that they are very rude. That is a problem though, Marie. They should not be rude. It is a problem. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's not out yet. And I don't know if any of you guys watched the Friday fraud law review. It's just a hokey little thing I do when I bump into the OIG press release website and see who's been busted for defrauding SSA, et cetera, et cetera. And the one coming up that just happened recently, I think in January, two guys, I'm just going to spill it here. Two guys were videotaping in Florida field offices, like at least 3 offices. And they were told to stop, blah, blah. It's illegal you're not allowed to videotape it's against people's privacy and all that. And, they say they're not a legitimate reason to videotape. I think there is a legitimate reason to videotape because we, the people paying the salaries of any state, federal worker or local, and my husband's a state worker, so I'll say it for him too. We have an interest in being treated, at least as, human beings when we go in there. Rudeness should not be tolerated. The SSA staff, to me, are ambassadors to the Social Security Administration. They work for it. So rudeness should not be tolerated. So if no other reason, videotaping for that reason. I don't know. I can go in there and listen to them be rude and take notes and hear your conversation with them because there's very little privacy, yet they're saying it's a privacy thing. I don't know. It's just me being a little hokey. It's funny because after I did that, I was speaking to my husband about it. And he goes, well, you can't do that in state office. I'm like, yeah, I know, but how else do you catch them to do an expose to show that they're not doing their jobs or they're being rude or whatever? Yeah, that's me. Hi, SGM Brown. I see you there. Good to see you. Yeah, so if you don't know when your CDR is because none of your paperwork said it, call your field office. And hopefully they won't be rude. Yeah, that's what I would do. I would do that if I was on disability because I need to know. I'm just too anal. I would need to know, what that future schedule is. But I would also be very calm and not ruin my life with treatment. I would do the reasonable amount of treatment to always be able to show that I have not improved if I have not improved. Or if other impairments come up, that's relevant for your CDR too. So you want to reasonably follow up, right? All right. Oops. How long have we been going on, guys? Hour and 22. All right, that's been pretty good. I'm pleased. You know, I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to show, but if they do, I'll answer questions. I literally carved out my afternoon because I was like, what if it won't work and I can't get it on and I have to go late? I don't know. Let's see. All right. Oh, thank you, Naya. That is very sweet. I don't think we've met before, have we? I appreciate. Oh, Marie, very sweet, very sweet. Okay. I'm just going down for another question of substance, guys. J-Mac, is that you? Let's see. J-Mac. That reminds me of AMAC, of which I am a member. Okay. 48 years old, diagnosed with major depressive disorder and PTSD. I am very sorry to hear that. That's tough. Unable to concentrate and also have severe degenerative disc disease, DDD. That's what we usually consider that means. And hypertrophy. Significant spondylosis. Is age still a major factor? It is. JMAC, it is. You have an absolute uphill battle for the next 2 years. You know what I often talk to people about, because you don't know, is there a chance you win? Of course there is. And it really depends on what the evidence shows as to how severe. How are you choosing to treat it? If you're choosing to treat it as if it's extremely debilitating, you know, that can make a difference. But I always talk to people. I don't know what, JMac, I don't know what your date last insured is. DLI, date last insured. Because if you stopped working altogether, you have a window closing, and that is your date last insured. And that means you have to prevail before that window closes, or keep that window open by working very limited part-time in a manner that's not inconsistent with being disabled. I have videos on that because there's a number you have to stay well under, but there's a number you have to reach a minimum of in order to earn those credits to extend out your date last insured. And then if you can't prevail under 50 and you're still, you know, your DLI is after that, at least now you have a chance with a little easier situation. Doesn't mean, you know, 50 to 54 is still tough to win, very tough. 55 to 60 is a bit easier. But particularly with these physical, but yeah, you know, if you just stopped working and your DLI is when you're 53, well, at least you're going to have a shot at it then. And I know that doesn't help for now, because now is when you need the income. I get it, but it's very hard to prove. It's a big uphill battle. And the burden is on you to prove that you can't do a third grade job based on the mental. And if you're not, I don't want to say hospitalized all the time for it, but it's got to be, it can't just be garden variety. I'm treated for depression and PTSD. It's just not, that's so many people that can still work that have that. So you have to be able to prove otherwise. So mentally, it's going to be very hard, short of really extreme records from mental health. And I don't mean just regular, you know, therapy records, unless it shows that you are freaking out in every visit. I mean, it's just very, very, very hard if you're trying to go on that. The back stuff is also very hard under 50, because you have to prove that it limits you to, you can't even do sedentary work, and you can't do a sit-stand option job. So it's very hard for someone who can't sit long. So they can't do a sit-down job all day. All right, understood. Can't do on the feet all day. Can't do a light job. Okay. So then they come up with the sit-stand option job. Well, if you need to alternate, and you can, you know, pull out an 8-hour day, then there's jobs you can do. I don't know how many of those jobs are. I don't know how accurate those numbers are, but that is the argument that I've seen. And so your goal is to get evidence to show that, no, you can't actually even be on your feet or sitting up posture. I always say sitting, the work postures are sitting and standing / walking, right? So if you are able to rotate those positions and manage to pull out an 8-hour day, because changing position alleviates the problems that would otherwise prevent you, then that is probably the argument the other side's going to make about being able to sit, stand, option job. And usually those are, there's plenty of unskilled work in that area. So you almost have to prove that you can't withstand being in an upright position. You have to go recline, possibly on and off all day to get your feet up, to alleviate the pain in the spinal or the lumbar or thoracic. And that's gonna require really, really major diagnostics on top of, I think, for best case scenario, best chances, very, very vigorous compliance with conservative therapies that are offered, and or if they're not, you got to ask about them. And then still at 48, it's going to be hard, but you can be laying the groundwork for the future. And, just try to get by in the meantime. And by the way, that doesn't mean you can't prevail under 50. We have them all the time. We just have to limit them to the ones that have the goods, are willing to get the goods, so we can make those arguments. And then you always have the wild cards of whether it's going to usually go to an ALJ, whether the ALJ is going to lean this way or this way. And it's a wild card. Can't control that part. But so yeah, you're under 48. So age is always going to be a factor until you are, and it's a factor all along the way, but you're at the under 50. And that's the 18-year-olds to the 49-year-olds. You're all kind of in the same boat for the most part. Okay. Oh, Naya, you're being so nice. Oh, Janine, Cindy, you're welcome. Let's see. Oh, Tara. Tara was talking about a real estate tax break, i.e. circuit breaker for Social Security recipients. I have no idea. I don't follow the real estate area, and I don't follow the IRS, so I don't know which one it would come from. Real estate tax break. That I don't know. I haven't heard of it, but I don't follow it, so I am sorry about that. If you ever have links to authoritative citations, authoritative sources online, it's always a great thing to pop up there. Feel free to pop it up on any other of my normal little during the day shares. And I am, if you want to show it up to people, it's fine. Maria, it's 50% for combined income up to 85%. So, yeah. Once you hit a certain combined income level, they will tax you on up to 85% of your combined income. Well, no, your total income, I guess, your total taxable income. So, yeah, it starts at 50%, and then it goes up from there. Demand recall. I don't know what that means. All right. Ryan, I'm just taking a glance at yours. If you're still around, you did this about 10 minutes ago. Let's see. I can see it better when it's over here. And you guys can see it too better, maybe. I'm 47, SSDI, and have worked Uber under SGA. Especially once write-off taken, I checked multiple times, and they said not to report till W-2. I checked again, no monthly. Just some of your thoughts. Yeah, I'm sure the SSA is developing potentially developing processes because there's so many giggers now, right? Now you mentioned a W-2, but don't you get a 1099, Ryan? I thought Uber did it. I thought all those guys give 1099s. So if it's a 1099, you're self-employed. And yeah, if you're, I mean, you're on SSDI. If you are, you know, they usually will ask you for a maybe an SSA 820 because you're self-employed as an Uber driver. Uber is basically your client who gives you the 1099 so that they can write off as a expense the contractor fees they pay to you. I'm going to assume you meant 1099 and not W-2. If it was a W-2, I mean, yeah, if it was a W-2, you couldn't do all those write-offs. And I think when you said write-off, you probably mean business-related work expenses. So your revenue is here from Uber, then you get to subtract your mileage, you know, probably the cost, you know, at least part of your cell phone bill because you need that cell phone to do Uber, right? Yeah, I mean, if you tell them you're doing it and you are making, you know, you're netting 300 a month or, you know, and you're only working, you know, I wouldn't go major hours because it can start looking like you could maybe do more, you know, more full-time work at a minimum wage, sit down, right? So just be careful, do it smart. But if they, you know, no monthly, I just checked again, no monthly. I don't know what you mean by no monthly. Meaning they just said to you, just report us at the end of the year. Yeah. They know that I mean, you told them you're working, so you kind of did what you have to do because they do say in all the paperwork after you prevail, and even when you're pending, if you start to work, let us know. Or if your work changes, let us know. So you did the right thing. I would just always keep proof that I let them know. And then if they don't want to do anything about it at that time, so be it. I think also we're all smart to know where the limits are so that if we ever do, because otherwise you can't stay under the limits and protect yourself if you don't know about them, you know, and if you're just working, you know, as much as you can or whatever. So that way you never find yourself in a bad situation having an overpayment. Right. I'm just scrolling down, guys. Okay. I don't know if this is Muley or Mully, but hi, and thanks for chiming in here. SSDI asked for another records release form. So I think you're saying the SSA or the DDS, who's working on your SSDI claim, asked for another records release form. That would be the SSA 827, the medical authorization form. Why do they need another form if you already gave them one? That would be because sometimes a provider, this is a hospital recently did this to my adjudicator on one of my cases. They wouldn't take, this is ridiculous. And in fact, I don't even think they can legally do this, but they did. And the DDS was just trying to get the job done. The adjudicator was. They wouldn't take an SSA 827 that was like 6 weeks old. And that's ridiculous because it's supposed to be good for a year. So the reason why they get them periodically, if your case is going on a bit, would be, as I see it, because they don't want to risk a refusal by the medical provider to provide the records by saying, his release is not near enough to the present time. So I would just do it, send it to him. After being married, this is rocket again. After being married 10 years, does SSDI dollar amount increase to the estimated amount of spouse's SS since it's more? Or does SSDI dollar amount never change? There's no real spousal SSD. You either earned it yourself or you didn't. So I'm not really sure what you mean by that. It comes under your own work record. So I would have to take a gander and say no. Your SSDI amount is based on your work record, and it will increase with COLAs And or if you're working part-time while disabled, still under SGA and keeping it safe, they will adjust your Social Security benefit amount every year when they recalculate. That, by the way, is really good for people who didn't work a lot in their life. Let's say you had some sporadic years, you have enough for SSDI, and you're on SSDI, but it's really low. You probably have a ton of years where you didn't, if it's because, say, you took 20 years off to raise kids or something, or some other reason, and then you gained, worked in a few years, whatever, they look at the top 35 years. And when you don't have it, they look at the amount of years you could have worked after 21. You can fill in some of those years, some of those zeros that's dragging down your average, and which is what they base your Social Security disability or overall Social Security amount on. Now you just replace that with, say, a $10,000 a year that was a zero. So just thought I'd throw that in there. Oh, thank you, Coach Jez. Very nice to meet you too. Mila, you're a month out from 55. Can they count me as 55 now? I believe they can if they want to. There are definitions of when they could. If I find it, and get some spare time, I'll try to find that and maybe post a video on it, on what they say about when they can take someone that is really close to the age change. Naya, do I seem unconfident? In what way? I don't really feel it. Let's see. I will say, though, Naya, I'm humble. So don't confuse the two, maybe. I don't know. I've been doing this way too long to not have some level of confidence. Way too long. Not too long, just very long compared to others. All right. I'm just trying to find some more questions. As I'm scrolling down to all these very sweet comments. Oh, hi, John Stamfa. I received a message on SSA website that my case has now gone to non-medical assessment stage. Fingers crossed that I will receive SSDI soon. Yeah. Did we talk about this, John? It's like a crapshoot, right? It's that whole non-medical review that doesn't really seem to mean one way or another about what the medical decision was. It's very frustrating. I think they need to fix that, but whatever we say is falling on deaf ears, obviously. All right, Mike D, I'm going to put you up here. My application for child and care spousal benefits pending since October 1st. Latest update is my application has moved from Chester, PA office to Jamaica, New York office. Usually that's an age thing. I don't know how old you are, Mike. I think Jamaica takes some of my older, when I say older, they're not even as old as me. But I think so. So I would like to think that's good. But you called it my application for child and care spousal benefits pending. Are you the disabled person? Then you wouldn't be the child and care spousal. You'd be the disabled person under whom your spouse would get a derivative benefit, auxiliary benefit, dependent benefit, if you prevail. I think that's what you might be meaning. I don't know. But yeah, fingers crossed for you. All right, Naya. Let's go careful on spending too much time picking on the SSA. It just takes up. You're welcome, freelance. Oh, SGM, you called, and was that about your CDR? I would say, yeah, I know it varies, so I want to know what mine is. Ugh, How rude of them. Or did they say, we don't have access to that information, but it does vary amongst claimants, which you knew anyway. Gosh, how ridiculous, right? And did you call the field office or the 800 number, SG? Okay. Let's see, any questions? Yeah, Brian, 1099 versus the W-2. Remember, guys, there's 2 ways you're going to get. Well, there's 3 ways you're going to be reporting income, or it will be reported for you. W-2, if you're an employee, 1099. If you're not an employee, but you are doing services for a company that wants to have proof that they paid you so they can write it off as a business expense, that would be a 1099. And if you are a self-employed person who doesn't, you give dog sitting services, you're not obviously going to get a 1099, I don't think. Or similar, you make a cabinet for somebody or whatever. You have your revenues that you report, and then you have your business expenses you subtract out. And, it's a little reminder about the cash is king theory of life. Not always a good thing, aside from being illegal, according to the IRS, not necessarily a good thing for your Social Security future either. So I have some videos on that, guys, and I think it's so important. I say this because I had a father who was a contractor, and that was the days when, I don't know if it's changed at all now. Things are more digital now. People pay with credit cards and stuff, so it's not as probably readily able to be done. There's less cash floating around, but the less you choose to pay of your earned income as reportable, the lower you're going to be paying in SS taxes, which is the premiums you pay, and that decides how large your benefit's going to be. So, you pay now or you pay later. Or you pay now or you lose later, right? Hi, Ryan. Yeah, 4 to 8 hours a week sounds good. I get nervous when people get over 15 hours, 20 hours. And of course, that's completely separate from the actual income, which of course has some very strict numbers to it. So we look at the strict numbers, strict hours. There's no black and white on the hours, but there's optics and the type of work the person's doing based on the tasks they said they could and could not do. So there's a lot of gray area. It's not a black and white thing. We just have to evaluate it with our experience and be like, that could optically be worse or not worse. When it's looked at by an objective person who doesn't know you and you haven't, you're trying to keep, you're either proving that you're disabled or you're proving that you haven't improved enough to fail on a CDR, ceased on a CDR. Let's see. Freelance, I'm going to pop this up. I don't know if we addressed this already. I have SSDI, not SSI, but my resources dipped below 2K. Do I need to point this out, or do they know automatically with SSI? All right. You're on SSDI. So this is a question, but I need more information. So I'll just give it an overall. If your SSDI is equal to or more than the amount that you can have in income, unearned income, to even get SSI, it's not going to matter. You're never going to be getting SSI anyway because of your SSD. So don't spend down your assets with the hope of getting SSI, because SSI, right, it's 967 this year, right? Federal SSI. If your SSDI is, they give you 20 bucks free, right? For unearned income. So at 987, if your SSD is 987 approximately or more, you're not getting SSI even if you have no resources. So do not be deliberately getting rid of resources to qualify for SSI, because you're not going to be qualified anyway. Now, if your SSDI was 500 and you're getting 4 something in SSI, that's a different story. And I'm not going to pretend to be a financial advisor about what's better to have, the asset or, it might be where you want to get that extra 400 for SSI, but but again, if your SSDI is over 987, I'd not be, getting rid of my assets, because there's going to be no SSI to be had anyway. I hope that answers that question. All righty. Let's see. All right. I think I'm all caught up, guys. Wait. It seems to have an endpoint, and then. Oh, thanks, Gemini. Well, it seems like it went well. I can't believe how time flies. It's funny, when I would go with Jonathan Ginsburg and hang out with him on his Wednesday nights, and I love doing it. He's so much fun. I have trouble staying up. And I remember thinking the first time, like, I gotta stay up till 8:30. Usually I'm just relaxing. I'm not asleep at 8:30, but I'm trying to, like, if I'm out of the office, I'm like either hanging out with the husband or, putting on a show with my mom if my husband's out of town with work. And yeah, I remember being like, wow, he does 2 hours. God, he's got such energy. And I'm like wiped. I'm definitely an early riser and more of an early to bed person. Not necessarily that early, but I'm like shutting off the brain and letting myself be entertained with, a movie or something. But yeah, it does go pretty fast. But then I found when we're in it, it's just like time kind of does fly. As long as you have your water and if this was 2 weeks ago with my cold, I wouldn't be able to do this because my throat was so dry. But anyhow, yeah, it seems like it turned out well. So I'll plan on this for next Wednesday, same bat channel, same bat time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, that's why I picked daytime, guys, because I would not be able to do this at night. And I think there's some people that can't do it at night either. And 8:30 to 10:30 might be late for those people. Not the California people, okay, but the East Coasters. I'm going to see if there's a few questions I can touch on here. Oh, Tara, yeah. How do some people qualify for both SSDI and SSI? I worked as a pediatric registered nurse for 26 years, 52 years old. Welcome to the 50s, Tara. Receiving SSDI instead of widow's benefits. Okay. The only way you're going to be eligible for both is if your SSDI is really low. If you are a pediatric registered nurse for 26 years, that's a really well-paid and appreciated profession. By the way, my mom is a retired nurse and my sister is a semi-retired registered nurse now. Yeah, the SSI is only for the poorer folks, and it can be poorer for whatever reason. And it doesn't mean they didn't work their entire life and very hard either. But some jobs are just better paying than others. Some took time off for work. Some took time off because they were ill, never filed for Social Security disability, weren't ill enough to be found disabled, but eventually it comes that way. And they, let's say it's 12 years later, they file for SSDI. They can't prove it all the way back to the 12 years prior or that when they were still date last insured eligible. And all they have is the SSI left over, and they have to be poor enough for it. So if they have a working spouse, they might not be financially struggling enough to have it. But you and your SSDI, if your SSDI, like I said, is over, I'm going to say, I think the numbers are around 987 a month, you would not be, you would not be eligible for SSI because your income is too high, right? That's countable income. So that would be why. But it's a much more to be on SSDI than SSI. And I appreciate SSI for everyone who needs it because they don't have the SSDI opportunity. But I mean, anyone can tell you, they got the thumb on you. I mean, if they go out and earn a little bit of money as a disabled person, they're going to have to give up some of their SSI that month. If they earn too much, they're going to lose all the SSI for that month. If they inherit money, they lose their SSI, assuming they go over the $2,000 resource limit if they're a single person, or $3,000 for a married person. If they get married to someone who has wherewithal, an income, they lose their SSI. So, you know, SSI has its rules because it's a needs-based program. I know that's the nice way of saying it's a welfare program. It's both, and you know, it's meant for only those that are in such need that their resources and income fall below this $2,000 and $3,000 limit. That's the resource limit. And by the way, everyone that practices this is urging them to change that resource limit. $2,000 and $3,000 has been there. I think I babbled about this in a video for decades. No COLA applied to that either. Just like it hasn't applied to that SSA limit for combined income. Ridiculous. You know, they need to at least COLA it up from the day they started it. I don't know what that will get us. I forget if that would make it like 6,000 or 7,000, or, you know, some people want it to be 10,000. I'm kind of okay with that. I don't know how high I would go with it. I'm not going to certainly go to a point where SSI folks getting a benefit from those working now for it will have more savings than the person that's working for it to give it to them, you know, like, you know, because there's so many workers that can't even afford to save money because it's that paycheck to paycheck. So we have to always kind of consider that balance when we want to take care of everybody. Let's see. This is regarding back pay, received. Oh, all right. Let's be rocking. Let's touch on this a second. I think I know what you're saying. Regarding back pay, received it in 2024 for 2023. I think you did a video saying that you can amend 2023 tax return to add the amount of back payment. You don't have to do that, actually. And that was what that video said. But I know it's confusing. And I'm not a tax preparer, but you're going to want one who knows how to do this. My understanding is there is a way to do your 2024 tax return where you got all this big lump sum from 2023, and maybe it should have been divided. When you think about it, part of it was from back benefits in 2023 and part was for 2024. And I've seen people who have 5 years of back benefits and it's all gotten in 1 year, and now they have $100,000 that they're going to be paying huge taxes on because they're in a higher tax bracket. There is something that they do, and this would be the tax people, whoever you use. You know, if you don't know how to do it, I would suggest you use one, even if you normally would do your own taxes, where it is actually, they figure out, maybe through worksheets, and then it goes into the 1040 or however it works, where the months from the 2023 take that you actually received in 2024, they're going to go back and figure out what the tax would have been had it been done in 2023. And that's what's going to be reflected in your 2024. And then your 2024 receipt months will be treated accordingly with the 2024 tax return. Does that make sense? So you don't have to do an amended return. You won't be doing an amended return. You will be doing it in your 2024 return. I just don't know how to do it. And if it happened to me and I, you know, was disabled and needed the, you know, was getting back benefits, I would be definitely getting a tax preparer. And I don't always use one. So, all right. I hope that helped. Oh, thank you, Mike D. Appreciate. Tara, yeah, your SSDI is well over 2,000. I'm glad to hear it. Very glad to hear it. You do not want the SSI. No. Hi, Deb. What time did you get on? 4 minutes ago. Or well, that's when you posted. Nice to see you. I hope you're okay. Okay. Deb Lindley, good to see you. Oh, hi, Thomas. Good to see you too. Glad to see you could pop in. I think I'm at the end, guys. What do you think? It's been 2 hours. Should we call it a day? Oh, Deb, I'm sorry. I'll be thinking about you for sure. Hang in there, girl. All right. Any last questions? Anybody? If so, we've been here for 1 hour, 55 minutes, and 26 seconds. It went fast for me, but you know, but when I'm chatting with people, I'm a chatty person, and that does happen. So I think it's all good. So I will be here, barring some unforeseen thing, in which case I'll put out a video that goes out to subscribers at least, or it gives them an alert if for some reason I had to not show up. But I don't have a hearing. I will be trying to. Oh, you're welcome, Tara. I'll be trying to make it a steady then. You know, it works for me. I'm sure there's going to be times when I have a hearing on that day because that's one of my hearing days. And I could actually carve that out of my hearing days, but I think we'll leave that alone for now. And if so, I could always change it to a Thursday. You know, whatever. We could always make it up on a different day. But I like to have a steady schedule, so I always know not to schedule things at a certain time if I'm going to have a kind of like a committed obligation. So we'll look at it that way. Okay. Diane, I do see something from you. What are the pros and cons? Oh, again, Medicare is not my thing. But Diane asked, what are the pros and cons of not accepting Plan B? He is 68 and healthy. We're healthy today and not necessarily tomorrow. I mean, Diane, I hadn't been in the hospital since my C-section 16 years ago. This was in September. And I'm in my late 50s. I was taken down with a destroyed gallbladder. I was in the hospital 3 times. I had multiple procedures because something went wrong. One of them was when I was out of state because I thought I was doing good. So imagine the bill. I was in the hospital, one of them for 3 days. It would wipe me out, you know? So just be careful. And I'll just say this. We all have our risks, you know, levels, and that's a personal choice. I'm kind of a cautious person when it comes to things like that. When I was younger, I was not so much. And so I'm a little more on the conservative side when it comes to covering your bases. I have car insurance. I have house insurance. I have life insurance. It's term, but it was 30 years and it was super big because I figured get it while I can at the term price I got it at, and it will expire in about 14 years. So if I'm still kicking, my kids lose out. But if I don't, they're really well taken care for. So I always say to them, they better behave because I'm going to change the beneficiary. It's really my husband, but then, you know, it would go to the kids. But anything can happen at any time. And when my mother moved here, so she was just retired, healthy. She has the Part B, and she has they called it like the Cadillac plan of those SUP plans, you know, the Medigap plans. We pay, and actually she pays it because she has, you know, decent Social Security, and she lives with us, so she doesn't have to spend it on shelter or anything. I think this year it's like $240 a month. We've been doing it she's been here since 2011, whatever that is. Is that 14 years? For about that amount of time, she was able to get the, you know, the SUP plan. When you're retired, it's cheaper than if you were disabled trying to get it. And it's the one, whatever it is, there's like a minimal deductible, I think, and it covers the co-pays, covers everything. So there's never a bill. Now, ironically, physically healthy, she had a problem when she first got here. But ever since then, she just goes to her primary care. She's on some very minimal medications, minimal. So physically, from that standpoint, really, really well. So one could look at it and say, wow, and you blew $240 a month for 14 years. Yeah, but you don't know when something's going to happen. it could be a car accident. It could be, and PIP only goes so far. It could be a fall. It doesn't even have to be an internal problem like a gallbladder or cancer or something. So I just felt for her, and she had no assets to lose or anything like that. So, but just the security, and I know everyone's different on this. She had the money and she didn't need it for housing because she's got us, the SEP plan. And it's never been used. And yeah, if you take all that money and you put it together, she's got a nice little nest egg. But the worry, that the peace of mind of knowing it was done that way, I have no regrets, and we're just going to keep doing it. And there's always, isn't there always a time, unless we drop with a heart attack or something, not to be morbid, guys, but more often than not, we have a lengthy illness, or multiple ones, or disability, So anyway, that's my take on it. I'm much more conservative in terms of, I like the peace of mind as long as it's affordable, of course. If someone has $1,000 a month SSDI or a retirement, can they really afford to pay not only the 185, but the 241 or whatever she's paying? Probably not. And if they're not living with family, if they're living with family, they can, as long as the family's going to, put food on the table and stuff. But, and in case, if that had been my mom, yeah, we would have still done it, as long as, we maybe couldn't have afforded it at that time ourselves, but she could. So it was kind of an easy choice to make. The money was there, so why not? All right. And Tara, you're very welcome. SSDI, this is Gemini. If you receive lump sum, we're going a little over here, but that's okay. If you receive lump sum, investment, inherit, oh my gosh, guess what you need? Everyone's situation would be different, Gemini, right? What if you have a house that needs a new roof? You own the house. That's your asset. Maybe you'd be putting it into the roof. Otherwise, yeah, I would think you would want to, everyone's got their risk tolerances with investments, but there's low risk ones. For the most risk aversion to people, maybe a high interest savings account. I don't know. That's what you need a financial advisor for. And I would use one, because these people, a good one, can take, let's say, you have back benefits of $50,000 and you don't need to use it for something else. They can turn that into something. They can, without doing huge risk. So I don't know. Do you have loved ones you want to leave a legacy to? I always look at that, because I'm all about that. I grew up kind of in a very modest, lower income environment, very good environment, but yeah, not we didn't have money or significant income, and it is something that I want to do differently for my kids if they deserve it. So I tell them, you better be nice. There's plenty of places where this could go. I'm not leaving it to someone not deserving. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I would like to leave some sort of legacy. So if they're working hard and they put in some time, they get to maybe reap some benefits that my husband and I, who both kind of grew up similarly in the financial aspect, would appreciate. So, okay. Official Rye Nirvana. We're still going, aren't we? I got in the mail a function report, I think you're saying, and a history and a pain questionnaire. Is it a good thing to get those within 5 days of applying? That's pretty normal. Well, I'm surprised it got out of the field office when you applied and went to the medical workup office, but they do seem to be doing things faster. So I'm wondering if it's triggered now earlier. Maybe the field office, when they send it up to the, they finally get it processed and it's up to the medical workup office. It's a very automated thing instead of the adjudicator having to get to the file, look at it, and then decide to send it. It's definitely different than it was even a few years ago. So I don't think that would be unusual. Getting out of the local office within 5 days, that's the amazing part I'm seeing about your post. We see a lot of slowness there. Okay. Oh, Salvatore Emma. Hey, you. I'm on SSDI and also receive a government pension. I paid into SSA during my career. I just want to be clear. The Fairness Act doesn't apply to me, right? So just to make it more clear, Sal, if you paid into SSA during that career that you paid the government pension, you earned the government pension, that same income. Yeah, you were never getting offset by WEP to begin with. You've always been getting the lower percentage amount applied, and you don't get the benefit of getting it raised like the other ones who didn't pay in to that will get. Go figure, right? But yeah, so your situation, if I'm reading this right, and if my understanding is correct, will not change. Okay. Hi, Chad. So yesterday I went to my local office. How do I expedite payment before the 60 days? She gave me my request for reconsideration as a receipt. I don't know the basis of your case, so I don't know how you would have expedited payment if you haven't proven you're disabled yet. You follow? They're not going to pay you when you're not proven disabled. There is that other instance of compassionate allowance. Certain cases where they feel for sure once the processing is done, the person's going to be disabled, almost based on the definition. I mean, the diagnosis. And they could be wrong, but they will give you like up to 6 months of payments, notwithstanding, because they really think strongly there's I don't know how high the percentage of their rightness is, but, and then if it turns out they were wrong, I believe you don't even have to pay back the 6 months they gave you in advance. But I don't know that applies to you because it looks like you already lost that initial, so you didn't have that situation. So I don't really know. Not really sure what you're referring to then, Chad. Thanks, Deb. Yeah. All right. So I think, guys, we should probably call it a day, but I'll be here next Wednesday is my plan. And let's do that. Thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you next time. As you know, the YouTube channel is All Things Social Security, and the website is joydisability.com. And if you are wanting to have your case reviewed and you do not have a representative, you can go there and fill out that free SSD evaluation form. It's very short. If you do have a representative, I have videos on the issues with trying to change up. It's not impossible, but you do have some hurdles that you're going to want to think about first. And then if you are pro se and you don't have a case that anyone is accepting and you want to, and we don't have space for it, if you want a consultation, they are prepaid. They're not terribly cheap for a reason, because I generally don't have a lot of time to do them. There is a link there also at joydisability.com, and that would be in the upper right-hand corner, I think. So you can look to do that. It's prepaid, but we're pretty easy about the time frames usually. So anyway, you're welcome to it. And if it's something that we consult on, we will let you know. Okay. All right, guys. I will talk to you next time. Have a great week. And I'll see you on the daily videos. Bye now.